You guys see this crazy little beam of light that's cutting right across my face? What is that? Looks like it's coming out of my eyes. Hey, welcome to the Fireside. Great to see you. I had to do kind of a last minute intro here while I'm getting set up to tattoo because I realized at the end of my last podcast that I did not record an intro or an exit. And I got this tiny little microphone to record into. So today's episode was a fun one. I got my friend James Hall on the show. He's been on once before. James owns Aura Gallery down in Austin, Texas. He is a tattooer, he is a painter, and he also puts on art shows once a year, probably more than once a year, but at least once a year, he reaches out to the tattoo community and he does kind of a themed show. And it's not themed by subject matter, it is themed by canvas size. So you might remember a few years ago, he did one called Orb. And I think he had partners originally, but he's putting them on more on his own these days. There's one called Orb, where basically he sent out a bunch of round canvases to tattooers all over the place, and we all painted, shipped them back to him, and he holds a live gallery show at his studio, as well as an online kind of a digital version of the show, so you can swipe through and check out all of the submissions. And this year, it's called Pixel. So, as you might guess, it is a square canvas that he shipped out, and I just completed mine and shipped it back to him. As this show has grown, he's sending it out to more kind of fine artists, painters, tattooers, so it's a little more of a blended show. It's not just a tattooer-specific art show, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm always excited to participate in it and to see what other people put together. So we talk in today's episode a little bit about that show, about the history of those shows, about what they do kind of for his business, his tattoo business, what they do for him personally as an artist, just kind of the value of putting on shows like that. We talk a good bit actually in this podcast just about creating an environment in your studio that is inviting and kind of draws in the types of clients that you're looking for. And so he had some interesting ideas on that. He's actually in the middle of building out a new studio. And so that's kind of how that topic started. We'd spend a little time talking about his tattooing process, his design process. James and I are similar in that neither of us have a really deliberate kind of tattooy, traditional tattooy style. We don't really depend a lot on bold outlines or anything like that. We take a more subtle, painterly approach to our work. And James has really kind of elevated his approach, in my opinion. Lately, I think that he's really starting to get kind of a more of a graphic, illustrative look while still keeping that painterly quality, which is a real challenge. It's something that I'm always kind of struggling with in my own work. So we talk a good bit about that. I'll just let you listen to it or watch it. There's no reason for me to describe the whole show, right? So enjoy, and I'll catch you at the end. Before we get into the actual show or into the shop or any of that, I was looking, or I guess I'm just just flipping through Instagram over the last several months, and when I do come across your work, you and I have always had kind of a similar approach in that we like to take a soft, painterly. We like to push the limits. Neither of us have a very traditional tattoo approach, I think,
Yep.
and I think we both kind of faced a lot of the same struggles for a lot of years, where tattoos, when you're trying to play with how soft you can get away with edges or how soft
Yep.
you can make transitions, and then tattoos come back and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to see in that tattoo, like when it's
For
settled
sure.
like that.
For
And
sure.
I feel like that you've figured something out recently where I don't know if it's a more illustrative quality. I don't know if it's like really punching some harder outlines or some strong areas of contrast, or really deciding what the focal points are going to be. But at least in the Instagram photos, it seems to me like you've turned a corner. And I
Yep.
don't mean that there was anything wrong with what you were doing before. I just feel like I know what to look at immediately now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel the same. I've had, I don't know where to kind of start on that, but I agree with you. Our work is pretty separate. Anytime we cross each other at conventions, I'm pretty turned on by what you've got going. We trade notes pretty well. And on our last talk, we talked about that mid-tone approach.
Hmm.
Um, in the last 2 years, I don't know what it is. It could be kind of, the studio environment that I've created, the team that I've got around me, some of my friends that I've had over the years, some of the people that I've worked with. Just it finally is all curating up to a point of like a maximum amount of information to pull from. Um, Oil painting helps a lot. Seeing work come back helps a lot, but it's definitely leaning into a more illustrative approach to that watercolor realism, soft focus area that we kind of teeter on.
Hmm.
Um, Definitely having like an illustrative approach to that, even if the illustration isn't there, like the line work or the or the black in some spots, whatever it is. Just I design things a little bit more graphically now, and even with those lines removed, you've got those edges and you've got that strong imagery. I
Mhm.
think I don't know if that answers the question properly, but
Exactly. I think that's it because I didn't feel like you were necessarily like becoming more traditional in your approach from a tattoo standpoint, like more outlining,
yep.
but definitely areas of stronger edges, bolder contrast, more graphic elements. What are you doing from a design standpoint, from your preparation standpoint, that you think has made, if anything, that's made a difference in that?
Man,
From
that's
from a
a
reference from a reference standpoint, are you looking at different types of reference? Are you
Yeah,
what?
so I've got a pretty specific approach. I'll talk with my clients, go over some ideas of what we're going for. Generally, I'll grab a body part template, mock everything up in Photoshop, and kind of get roughly the right things in roughly the right areas. I can work pretty quickly with Photoshop. I'll drop that on the iPad and then in Procreate, manipulate things, paint over things, change things, and really kind of dial it in there. And I think one of my biggest things that I still preach to people is like pulling your own line drawings. There's something about pulling your own line drawings that makes you feel what that edge is or see what that edge is doing. And then when you go and tattoo it, even if it's a watercolor tattoo or a realism or it's black and gray, because you've already drawn the skeleton, designed the skeleton, drawn it, printed it out, stenciled it. By the time you do it, you're maintaining that um,
Hmm,
in true form. I think.
hmm, yeah.
Not to say there's
Well,
anything wrong with one of those stencil apps, but I've noticed there's a little bit less intentionality for me personally when I run it through
mhm.
an app and then tattoo it. I find myself trying to figure it out during the process for versus already having it logged and I can play with it.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't used stencil apps much, but I've been um, mesmerized by. I don't know if you follow Mike Stockings, but his little quick things on little Procreate tips on creating perfect realism stencils and
Yep.
in Procreate and all that. I love to watch him do it, and that dude has a way. I mean, he's awesome at what he does. But I think that's a slippery slope for people who don't have a good drawing base. There's no way that I could if I were to use a calling that like a stencil app where I would like pull a head of a tiger and then invert it and then drop the saturation and then do what like add the filters where it just becomes like a stencilable
Yep.
thing. Um, I, I wouldn't make a good tattoo. I'm confident I wouldn't make a good tattoo.
Yep.
I might be able to use that as a stencil, but in order to make that work as a stencil, I would need to set that reference here, set up a drawing here, make
Yep.
my own version of the drawing, and do some hybrid of the two of those things.
Exactly. And I've noticed that again, if I still go in there and pull my own stencil, I'm logging that data and I can see what the
Hmm.
teeth are doing and how the mouth separates from the neck on that tiger
Right,
versus trying to
right.
follow the stencil. I could do it, but you and me also aren't like realism guys.
Mhm.
Even if we do realistic work or there's realistic aspects in our work, we're not realism dudes, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it works better for that. But again, when you have that illustration in there, you're like losing some edges and playing around. I've noticed I can play around more and have more fun when I've already logged that data ahead of time. So,
Hmm.
but I'm
Yeah.
the same way with my paintings. Like I keep a pretty good schedule on there. I've got a good idea what it looks like before it goes. I'll pull the line drawing for that on my iPad and sometimes I'll project it onto the canvas. And then again, once I start painting, I know exactly what those edges are doing and what those dotted lines kind of mean, in the apple or in the face or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
all that data is already there. Now I can play around with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Why you mentioned a little while ago that you'll start something in Photoshop and then pull it to Procreate. What's the benefit of going to Procreate uh, afterwards?
I haven't spent a ton of time with digital mediums. All every time I want to learn a new medium, I just think, why don't I just get better at oil painting because that's where my passion is.
Mhm.
So with Procreate, I never sat down to learn all the tools and the nuances, and I have noticed some really cool stuff lately. But with like the magic erase tool or the select tool in Photoshop, I can just separate that rose from the background in 20 seconds versus like erasing it in Procreate
Mhm.
or doing the multiply filter and then it stacks weird. I don't know. I can chop
Gotcha.
it together in Photoshop way quicker.
You're just more
Um,
comfortable with the platform than in Procreate. Okay.
exactly, and that's just because I
Yeah.
haven't spent the time to learn. I watch other people do it, and it's awesome. It's badass.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the digital stuff. Obviously, everyone's been talking about AI. We'll get to it, but that was kind of a subtle theme in the pixel art show. It's like, hey, we're at this digital convergence, but rather than complain about it, why don't we lean into it to make our jobs easier, our jobs better, or our work better? It's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
So that's just me not learning this platform, but leaning into it a bit in some sort of a hybrid fashion, like you were saying with the tiger earlier.
Mhm.
Kind of using it here, pulling it in there, and then applying it over there.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you, and I like that transition because I have subscribed to every. I'm probably spending $250 a month on AI apps just to see what all they do
What it
differently.
can do, yeah, it's cool.
I'm just so curious about it, and I'm trying my best. I shouldn't say I'm trying my best. It's not hard for me to not come at it from a fear standpoint. I'm thinking of it as a tool first. In our industry, I feel like that there aren't a whole lot of people thinking of it, or maybe that's just what's being fed to me. I feel like everyone is scared to death of it, and it
Similar.
doesn't. So far, it doesn't scare me in the least. It has been such a fun way to iterate, to come up with ideas, to come up with color palettes, just for me to see like what. And I'm not being super descriptive. I've watched YouTube videos on people who are like really mastering the prompt, and like
Yep.
so they get this very specific stuff. I will just like type in abundance. And I'll be like, what do you have to say for
Yep.
abundance? And I'm just curious what the NAI thinks abundance is, or,
Yep.
or any number of like, just really kind of woo woo kind of general things,
Yeah.
like what is it? But what does it think about that? And then now that you can have so many different filters and inputs and you can get something predictable from it, like you can
Yep.
say, I want abundance, but I want it with this programming language. I don't know how it actually works, but like
Yep.
in this style, um, dude, I've absolutely loved it, and I've even been using it with my clients whenever we're doing consultations and they have ideas. I'm like typing them in. I'm like, oh, that we're like exploring together. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool. Of course, I'm not going to do anything that look. The finished tattoo is not going to look like anything from any of those, but at least we're starting to like find a language or a
Yep.
color palette or
Yep.
an arrangement or something where I'm loving it, man. I think I'm in the minority. I don't know.
No, I'm right there with you. Again, I think it's a tool. It's not going anywhere, so you can complain about it. You can kind of go against it, but at some point, it's just going to integrate further, which we've used all the time. Again, if we're going back to tattoo styles, realism, there's all of us are pulling images off Google for the rose or for the tiger or for the Poseidon statue or whatever it is. And so on that, a couple of my artists here have really got me turned on to it. I've been using it for painting prompts just to kind of get me some. I've got a cool direction I'm going next year with my work, and I'm working up to that point. So I've been using this AI to kind of give me some really weird, cool stuff. But one of my guys here is a really accomplished black and gray realism guy, super smooth, really nice work. And he gets a lot of that classic imagery, your tigers and your Greek statues, and maybe Poseidon is a good example. He had one a couple weeks ago, and there's this one statue that everyone does. We've seen it 1,000 times a day probably, and so he went in there and AI prompted, Poseidon, Greek statue, Colosseum, stormy clouds, and got a fresh reference that no one's ever used before.
Right.
You're doing the
Yeah.
same thing off of Google. You might as well, that painting just
Mhm.
fell. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is it okay?
that's
Uh,
probably fine.
the
But yeah, so he's got a unique reference that no one else is going to use, and I think that now by default that makes that piece stronger and more valuable because it's not going to be replicated tomorrow on Instagram.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm sure I've seen the Poseidon you're talking about. Think about the Saint Michael tattoo that everyone has
Exactly.
done for my whole career,
Which
30
is
years
great.
that I know. Yeah, yeah. I know the exact image. I've seen it done every possible way, but yeah, I haven't even gone down that. So there's another thing I could do. I could because some of these apps you can feed it actual reference photos and then say
Yep.
use this as a reference and then pull from that. I'm going to do that actually tonight when we get off. I'm going to pull up the most generic Saint Michael slaying the demon, with
Yep.
the foot on the
Exactly.
head
Yep.
that everyone's used, and I'm going to see what it comes up with. The thing that I think is interesting about it, and that I think is kind of that's often overlooked, especially when people are well, I'll say it's often overlooked. It's like whenever I get stuck, I go to the same handful of painters, tattooers, whatever. Like if I'm doing something really large scale and crazy, kind of color, and I'm gonna go to look at Steve Moore's tattoo, and I'm gonna steal something from Steve Moore. I'm gonna
For
steal
sure.
something from the same handful. Teresa Sharp. I'll grab something from Teresa, from
Absolutely.
somebody, and then, but like what this thing is doing, it's like an amalgamation of Steve and Teresa and a trillion other people just like them. So
Yep.
it's way less it's to me I'm stealing from from 100,000 people instead of the two or three that I steal from all the time now,
Which again, I think is more valuable because our
Mhm.
whole life, whether it's in tattooing or art or just on your day to day interactions with people, is a culmination of your life experiences, right? And the people you've
Mhm.
met or the things you've seen. So now you just have a larger library to pull from, and ideally, we can get better with that. That just makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Um, but because you said that, that's cool too. I actually noticed the other day playing around with it. I was playing on one of their AI. They've got all the. I don't have it subscribed yet, but I've messed around a little bit, and I typed in like um, illustration, soft focus, floral sleeve, and it
Hmm.
prompted like AI tattoo sleeves, and the
Oh, wow.
compositions were badass. So now I could take one of those and then go build it myself and have a unique approach to something that again I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Or now I'm not again directly, going after, my friend Andres or somebody right next to me that's doing a
Mhm.
similar type of work. I can kind of mimic that without maybe biting off anyone specifically or putting too much influence into my head, even if it's involuntary. Now it's through a ghostwriter, if you will. I still have
Mhm.
to apply to do the work though. So then that's where the artistic side comes in. I don't think AI is going to replace us. This whatever mid journey is not going to do our tattoos for us. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
I don't think you're losing the essence of being an artist if you're still letting that artistic process happen by creating, design, pulling your line drawing, and then tattooing it and interacting with your client. There's still a soul there that won't be replaced.
Yeah, and the best of us and the majority of us, I hope, will continue to be curious, and none of us are interested in like um, phoning it in by making a prompt, creating a line drawing, and trying to copy. Or I'm not, at least. That
Definitely,
doesn't
definitely, that's
entertain
not
me at
fun.
all. Yeah, I love it from like from an iteration kind of a way to like brainstorm quickly and see cool stuff and see color combinations I haven't used before, or just different
Yep,
ideas of subject matter. But there's just no chance that I would, even starting over as a young person. I know I'm closer to the end than the beginning of tattooing now, but even starting over as a young person, there's nothing that I don't think I would have even considered making a career if this had been around when I was 20 and starting to tattoo. I would have made
for
a
sure.
career just like copying AI imagery. Who's going to do that? How boring would it
Yeah.
be?
And again, I think if that's a concern that people have, is like, AI is going to replace some artistic quality or whatever it is, even outside of tattooing. Um, like you still have to apply yourself in that, and I don't think that's going to be replaced very easily, and you still have to apply it. If and that's an integrity issue of the artists,
Mhm.
not the app itself. So like again, you can kind of be scared of this app, but I don't think it's an issue of AI. I think that's a human issue that we have where tattooers are coming up with stencil apps and rotary machines, and they can just kind of start zipping along, whereas we came up in a little bit of a different process. So
Mhm.
as scary as unfavorable as that is, like again, I still think that's on us to teach the next people of like, again, here's a great tool. Now how can you get better with that tool?
Mhm.
Just like a rotary machine, just like Sanoderm, just like anything else.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my opinion
Yeah.
on that.
And one thing, and I don't want to spend too much time on AI, but that's just one of these things. It's so big right now, and I haven't really
The
talked about it on
wormhole.
the podcast yet. Yeah, it's a wormhole.
Yeah.
It's exciting, and I get why it's scary, but it's more exciting than scary to me. But if some of the imagery that I've generated without a really keen eye, meaning that you would have to I think Dan Sprick has one of my favorite quotes. He says, "We see what our eyes are conditioned to see." So like
Yep. Perspective.
yeah. So like the subtleties, subtle shifts in temperature, something more saturated or less saturated, all that. You can pull up the greatest AI image in the world, and it could be it could be beautiful for painterly realism, floral sleeve or whatever. But just because you can pull it up and make an instant stencil of it does not mean you can separate this petal from this petal by the slightest bit of temperature, allowing for the background color that seeps in between the petals. All that stuff still comes with time and gaining an eye and an expertise. It doesn't even come close to, if nothing else, I think it makes it more difficult to take really complex imagery like that and simplify it to a tattoo.
Yeah, you have to take that, break it down, and then you yourself have to build it up to that point or whatever point you're going to, whether it's less than that or better than that. Again,
Mhm.
my friend Andres is a good friend of mine, and I look at his references and even his line drawings, and his tattoos surpass that. Um, but he just has that understanding of breaking it down and then building it up beyond that point.
Yeah.
You can't AI that away. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. You're talking about Andreas Acosta?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. I mean, I've looked at I did a seminar that he did once, and I've seen a lot of his, or I can tell just by, especially back when he was doing all the so many morph roses,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
years ago, you can tell that he was just like probably crudely dropping a circus tent in the center of a rose. And just
Yep.
because you can crudely crop those things together in Photoshop doesn't mean that you can blend them seamlessly into an
Yeah,
environment
yeah,
in a
yeah, yeah. You have
rose.
to make
Yeah.
it look convincing, either as a
Yeah.
tattoo or a painting, or even a piece of artwork. Like you still have to apply it, which is,
Yeah.
again, I think where the artistic thing. Like, you can't. Art isn't just the picture on the wall. It's the essence of what brings that to life. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
we'll see.
And
But
before,
again, that was like a subtle theme for the Pixel show. Is like, now that all this is becoming a topic, let's create this pixelated gallery using these like varying size canvases. And if some people want to lean into digital things like that, I've got a couple that I'm working on. You can see them a little bit back here, where they're like digitally distorted, that I ran through some filters and programs. Now I
uh,
have to now I have to physically paint glitch effects that I got on my computer. Like,
yeah.
it's a nightmare. It's crazy.
Let's roll into the Pixel show. The canvases aren't a uniform size.
No, not for this one. So I've done this a couple times before, and I think for this time strategically it'll work out really well. So all of my resident artists here, we're doing a 14-inch canvas. Everybody that's local to Austin and Texas is getting 12-inch canvases, and then everyone out of state is getting 8-inch, I believe. So
Nice.
that by default, regardless of the medium, subject matter, if anybody's using AI or leaning into that digital look or that digital theme, the gallery itself will have this pixelated, tessellated presentation of it, where it's kind of coming in and out of focus from bigger to smaller, from realism to charcoal to oil and acrylic. Um,
Uh,
it'll kind of mimic that in presentation, if the theme is in somebody's comfort zone that isn't in that digital. So
yeah. Yeah. So, you how often? So you've done how many times have you done this, or not this specific show, but this type of show between the what were the first called? Orb and
yeah, so
how?
I've done or been a part of many. So I think this will be the seventh or eighth show that I've curated and kind of hosted and put on. Um, so yeah, we've been doing this for, if this is our, let's say, seventh on the safe side, probably 9 years, because there was a year in COVID that we had to postpone, and then there was probably a year that we didn't do it for one reason or another. I've had some smaller shows in the middle, like we did a black and gray Halloween show last year that was super fun, but that was more of a
Hmm,
local thing.
mhm.
Yeah, so 7 or 8 shows, kind of growing
Have
over time. It started off with just a couple friends in the area, and hey, let's get 20 of us and do a cool art show together and hang out. And everybody's always telling me that they want to paint more, so fucking here's your chance.
mhm.
And then that's grown up to, I think this year, I think we have 117-ish canvases out and confirmed, um,
Oh, nice.
which is way bigger than our last one, which was the biggest one yet. So each year it just is growing and growing, and now we're getting a good amount of artists that aren't tattooers at all. Like, we've got some accomplished oil painters, some illustrators, some graphic designers in here. Again, either local, friends of friends. There's a really accomplished painter that's done a couple workshops here. We've got another one with him coming up. His work is incredible, and he's doing it. And so now we're tapping into this non-tattoo specific side of the art world, which is great, because again, now we can pull from other people and other inspirations. By default, if you have a tattoo convention or a tattoo art show, 50% of it's going to be skulls and flowers, right? So
Hmm.
now getting some actual, classically trained oil painters, or some um, people that around town that have shown in a lot of galleries to do acrylic work, or we've had a couple sculptors involved. Like, now we're getting some really cool
Mm.
mediums that are coming in that don't look like anything I would ever think to do, which is the great thing about these shows. Is you have anywhere from 80 to possibly 117 canvases this year, and there's 116 different ways that I didn't do it, because I'm
Right.
looking at all everyone else's pieces, and I'm like, I didn't even think to make that work that way, or fit this in this shape, or use
Mhm.
that medium. Robin, she did one last year where she like embroidered her canvas and did like embroidery on it, and that was
Oh,
it was the first piece that sold. Like, it was a hit. It
huh.
was so cool. I'm super
Oh,
down for that.
yeah, that's awesome. Out of 9 shows, have how many times have you controlled, like, the subject matter of the
Never.
paintings? Never. Okay.
Never.
I didn't
I've
think so.
I've noticed, and you probably know this, either yourself or through talking with others. As soon, especially as tattooers, as soon as you try to put any sort of a box in there, even if it's a big box, but a client comes in, they're like, red rose, forearm, 4 inches big. Immediately, you're like, that's probably not how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Art shows are the same way, So like, I don't limit people in medium or subject matter, which can be a little intimidating. I've found out, but it really lets people just explore what they want to explore, do something they're comfortable with, and then hopefully provide a strong piece.
Mhm.
Which I've had some feedback on. Some artists that I've invited or friends that have reached out to me to do the show. They don't maybe necessarily do oil painting. I've been oil painting really heavily for at least 6 years, probably going on 8. After working with Nick for so long,
Mhm.
and a lot of people will be like, "Man, I really want to do the show, but like I don't do oil painting. I'm not like an artist." And I'm like, "That what does that mean though? Like can you create something and share your perception of the world around you? Let's see what that is." Like that's why these shows exist. And again, if you want to embroider a canvas or do watercolor on paper with some like tattoo flash stuff and mount it to the canvas, or you want to oil paint, I want to see it, because like those aren't things that I would normally do, and that's going to inspire me. Even if I don't do that kind of work, or maybe that subject matter, it's gonna be like, man, again, look at your the blends on this watercolor painting, or the how you transformed a 2D canvas to 3D with some embroidery or some clay molded onto the top. Like that's awesome. So
Yeah. Yeah.
never really limited people. I generally have a shape that I choose. I do a little bit of a write up on like a theme or an idea behind it. It kind of sparks some inspiration, and then it's on each artist to kind of see how far they want to take either that theme and idea or just the canvas itself. So it's pretty open format.
Yeah. I love the square. I never through art school or any workshops that I ever did or anything. No one ever painted on a square. And then now we've gotten so accustomed to seeing artwork or everything in squares. It's starting to change with the different formats
For sure,
for
for
social
sure.
media, but for the longest time it was a square. And whenever I first when you first sent me this canvas and I sat down, I like laid it out and I put my kind of ground wash on it. It popped in my head. I was thinking about the first time I ever met and podcasted with Aaron Springs
Yep.
from Red Dagger, or I guess they're not Red Dagger now, but from Red Dagger, and he had been tattooing a long time. He was awesome, but had been tattooing a long time, and he made a comment of like whenever he was designing, he always zoomed out or he thought about what the design would look like in a 2 by 2 square. He's like, because
Yeah.
everyone experiences it that way, and I wanted to grab their attention. And that was the
Fucking
first
great
time I
idea.
ever yeah, that was the first time I ever felt like an old man in tattooing. This was probably 2015 or something, and I was like, "Oh, oh yeah, you're holy crap!" Like I never would consider what my tattoos looked like in a square, or
Yeah.
how people experience. Because I've always thought about my tattoos as how people experience who are with the person who has the tattoo, who are like,
Exactly,
seeing
or
that
maybe
person
or
in real
maybe
life.
at best in like a full page magazine spread, because that was kind of the
Yeah,
goal back in the day, right? So you're
right.
thinking like an 8.5 by 11, not a
Yeah,
two
yeah.
by two as people's thumbs are like falling off.
Yeah, exactly. And so for some reason that pop when I put the canvas up on the easel, that popped back in my head, that
That's
conversation.
super cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
wish Aaron does the shows for me every year. He's a good friend of mine. He comes up every month or two and we paint, catch up, and go play
Oh,
pool and
nice.
all the things. And his piece for the show last year was remarkably cool. He is
I'm
so
sure.
great. He won't ever say it himself, but his tattoos and paintings are absolutely
Oh,
incredible. He's one of the people that I draw a lot of inspiration from, not only as a tattooer and artist, but just as a person, the way he carries himself. He's so goofy and fun, but like he can dial in and like really kind of show you some good fundamentals and maybe some groundbreaking ideas, like a 2 by 2 square. So
yeah. That
the
was I mean,
square,
that that
the
yeah, for
square
me, it
canvas I've
was.
never really done before. The first art show Nick and I ever did in our studio that you came and got
Mhm.
tattooed by, and then I think you did an episode with him and Insminger at that time.
Right.
Uh, the first art show we ever did where this started was a series of tiny, small gessoed canvases we gave to like 20 of our friends, and that was where this all kind of happened.
Hmm.
So this was kind of a full circle concept of that show. Again, the AI and the digital theme is really big right now. All of us are using Procreate. Um, and then again, I'm thinking, digital pixels, Instagram, computer screens, iPhones, like it's all squares, it's all pixels, it's all little bite-sized chunks of data. So I think this show kind of really encapsulates a lot of themes there, not only for myself, but then, for, again, artists and tattooers alike. So it'll be a
Yeah.
cool one to see it. And every year we've had the virtual gallery on the website. So everyone that can't come, we have a lot of friends that travel up. Aaron and them will come up for the show. A couple of friends fly down for it, but everyone that can't make it, we do a digital gallery where you can see all of it online. So then I think, again, having this varying tessellation of pixels online that you can then go see on a screen in a pixel format, again, kind of
Right.
adds to the show. It just keeps building on itself the further it goes. It's kind of cool. It wasn't all planned out that way, but as it's gone on, it's kind of all become that.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about having to have your studio completely finished. How many people do you think will? How many people show up at the actual opening on
It's
it?
hard to say. I don't have a door ticker or a door guy that keeps track of it,
Uh,
but our last two art shows, which have been our biggest yet, we've had anywhere from, I think, 76 to 84 canvases slash artists participate.
mhm.
Some people will do multiple, so the artist count is probably around in the 60s, with a couple people doing duplicates. Or I think last year I did 7, which I'm never doing again. Um, Everyone seems to think that our last art show or two, we had 250, 300 people show up. Like,
Wow.
it's an actual, like, event. It's pretty crazy.
Uh,
But again, years and years, like, it started off pretty small. Each year, 5 extra canvases, 20 extra people show up, and now it's just become this kind of machine. So this new project I'm working on for the studio will give us that bigger presentation, not only for the gallery, and give it that formal display that I think tattooing not only currently has, as it's become more mainstream and more accepted. And tattoos are, it's almost weird if you don't have tattoos now, right? So it's like, okay, if tattooing is more accepted, most of us carry ourselves in a pretty high end way of how we consult with our clients, how we let them heal, the equipment that we're using. Now, how do we have not only the place that we do the tattoos inside of these 4 walls, but then the artwork and stuff that we do and the shows that we curate together? How do we give it like a really formal display so that the general public that's not in the tattoo industry gets that same spark that we get of like, oh man, this is like, there's something serious going on here. It's not just dudes smoking cigarettes outside and watercoloring all day. It's like this is an actual like passion. Like, this is where tattooing comes from. We were all the art nerds that wanted to make money, and we found tattooing, thankfully. So now, how do we spin that back to that art side of things?
mhm. Yeah, that is something that, yeah, that I think even still is, from the standpoint of the general public, they still see a separation in tattooing and like what really great tattooers do. So I hear just my client yesterday, who I've done so much work on, probably
Yep,
100 200 hours, way a lot of hours,
love those
and
clients.
he was talking to someone at his work about his tattooer actually being a painter. Like, my tattooer is not just, he doesn't just do tattoos, he's
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
artist. They still they like, people really, like, more than ever, I think, draw that line in the sand, because we're still at a point, like, for us, those of us who are in it all the time and we're going to shows, we realize, man, everybody's really good. Like, everyone I come in contact with is really good. But the general public, they still kind of have an older idea of, they can visualize what tattooing was 15 years ago, or what they thought it was 15 years
Yep.
ago, whatever their kind of idea of it was then, and then what they see now, and they have to have like a they have to be able to verbalize what the difference is. Like, no, this person actually, you know what, my tattooer is good because he's an artist, he's a painter,
Exactly,
he's a
exactly. And I think
this, yeah.
there's something great about, traditional tattooing and walk-in shops and the level of efficiency and like just good, clean, fundamental skills that come out of that. But then, a lot of us are seeking this artistic side, either from where we came from pre-tattooing, or of what we found in tattooing. Watching your podcast, going to shows like Hell City, walking into some of these bigger name shops, and you see this whole other presentation. You're like, well, how do I do that? So I don't know how many other shops do this. I have a couple friends myself that are on the same kind of wave or have a similar goal to what we have. But in at least Central Texas, like, we have even our tattoo friends, Aaron Springs being one of them. Like, they come up here just to paint with us sometimes. Just like,
Mm.
there's not, where do we get that? So that is only not only serving a purpose in the community of us like working with each other, trading our secrets, helping each other out, sharing information, but then clients see that. So online, when I'm posting these things and I'm building the art show and I'm putting out these like promotional videos of what goes into the behind the scenes of not just sitting down with your client and doing a cool tattoo. And then when they see it for themselves, obviously, like I think most people are at a point now where tattooing has become really accepted, super mainstream, popular, of course. It's on TV. Now when people see that next level in person or online, they like want to be a part of that. Again, art is one of the few things. There was something recently where it was like the two most valuable things that have ever sold in public, one of which was, probably cobalt or lithium. Don't quote me on this, but it's something along those lines, and a painting. Those are the single
Hmm.
two most valuable things that have ever sold in public, and one of them was art. Like there's so much inherent value in that, and you see it. You work on a client, you capture the story, you work on a project, and you wrap it up. And I get emails months after the fact. Oh my gosh, I'm still getting compliments, and every day I wake up and I think about this, and thank you so much for helping me capture this journey. And paintings can do that too. I've seen paintings. I've got a couple in my studio, and we both know accomplished painters where you see that painting, and even if it's only online, much less in person, like it makes you stop in your tracks, and you're like, you stop scrolling for a minute, and you're like, wow, like I
Mhm.
need to digest it. Like something's happening. So
Yeah.
again, doing these art show, providing that higher level like presentation, I think that's all kind of pushing. What I'm trying to do is push tattooing to that tattooing and the tattoo culture, I guess, to that next level of, again, a more formal or a more serious presentation and acceptance of, again, like, there's something more here than just what you see on the surface. Even if we're talking tattoos, it's not just a cool bird with some nice outlines and good shading. Like that's how most people would describe that, right? Like what is the nuance of accomplishing that? And that's kind of been my goal for the last couple of years as I've been growing the art shows and growing the studio platform, and doing these charity outreach events. And it's all this one big goal of trying to like advance the culture to the public, because it's happening inside of tattooing daily, weekly, hourly on Instagram.
Yeah.
Now how do we get that outside of these walls?
Right. And something like what you're talking about, building a studio that has high level non tattoo artwork on the walls, if like traditional oil, maybe not traditional oil paintings, but like paintings on the walls. When people come in, I appreciate that you made the comment about flash shops being valuable, because they certainly are. And there's no doubt that I mean, I see this very clear, I don't want to call it a separation, because I don't feel like it's us against them or anything like that, but I see people who are like, they really see the value in being super efficient, getting single pass, really clean lines,
Yep.
really solid packing color. They love different. I mean, they love Flash from different eras. I don't know Flash that well, man, but I know people who know Flash,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
Flash
yeah.
historians, and like I love that is a thing. But just think about the difference of walking in a shop of someone who with that mindset, what that shop looks like, and then what your studio looks like, or what my studio is just me there, but it's not a full shop. But it's such a completely different environment, and then it's hard sometimes to separate yourself being a long-term tattooer of what those two things say to a client who's walking in to get tattooed. Like what do they think walking into one environment versus another?
Exactly.
uh
Also, what are they getting with the context of? Because again, the street shops serve a wonderful purpose. Like the level of efficiency and technical ability. Like there's things that happen in walk-in shops I still can't do.
oh yeah,
But then on the other
yeah.
side, I'm in. We're in this realm of other skill sets that we're pursuing, and I think clients see that. I don't like to talk or like brag about myself too much, but when people come into this shop or maybe your studio or anything kind of in that other caliber. If we're talking street shops or like tattoo culture and tattoo history, then what are these art studios and these art history focused places are where that divergence happens? And people all the time, returning clients, new clients, we hear it. I'm sure you do too. Where they walk in, it's like, man, this is different. Like the energy is different, and I feel like
Mhm.
we're about to do something that's cool. And if you're doing your job and you're using your references and you're getting that process down that I think shows your integrity as an artist, then you're going to deliver that next level piece, what you're capable of in that time, per your skill set. But like doing that with your environment then reflects on your work and kind of vice versa. So
Mhm.
I have a hard time sitting still, like we were talking about before we got started. Sometimes I drive myself nuts, but it's always just like, okay, well, what's that next thing? Okay, this artist said this. I really, that's a good compliment. What if I lean into that? Okay, this client really liked that piece. What did I do there? Like
Mhm.
constantly just left door, right door, red pill, blue pill. Like
Mhm.
which one is going to open up that next opportunity?
Yeah. Th- Uh, One thing that I think about that I that I believe that the type of environment that you've created at your studio, and that a lot of the more the term boutique, I know I've been saying boutique studios forever, but I
That's your
can't come up
buzzword
with
right
anything
now.
better. Yeah, I can't come up with anything better. I think that the level of comfort that it gives clients is completely different. One thing, as much as I like the look of street shops, and I worked in street shops,
Yeah,
and I do respect what happens at street shops, and I would get fired within days of being hired at a street shop. They
yeah,
would be like,
yeah,
"Dude, you're doing one tattoo a day. You got to go."
yeah. Exactly.
But
We need
uh,
more turnover.
right, but it's not known for they can be very intimidating. Even as a 27-year tattooer, if I walk into a street shop, I can feel my heart racing a little bit. Not known for historically, not known for great customer service, a little bit rough around the edges, a little bit like, pick 'em, stick 'em kind of a mindset. And I think that the one thing that I recognized as I moved into larger scale tattooing, and especially more painterly tattooing, where my clientele was just a different a softer, I hate to say a softer type of person, but my clients are very like, uh, I don't know, I have a particular type of person that I end up tattooing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they just wouldn't thrive in that environment at all. They wouldn't enjoy the experience uh, in a street shop. They appreciate that there's no one else in the room with us. They appreciate that they have control over the music and not me, or that we they get to pick the Netflix shows that we watch, or
exactly.
that my cot is memory foam, and I try to make sure that they're comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, again, I think that high level of not only presentation and then how we carry ourselves and the work that we do, but then like you're going to curate a high end clientele. And if you're doing 6 or 8 hour sessions or, 2, 3 day sittings, like all that stuff matters. So if you're looking at a red wall with these like screeching eagles and it's ACDC all day, that's great for little clean, technical, super effective tattooing. But when you're working on a large scale layout or a really intense piece, like the headspace, like it's everything for sure. Like you can make or break an appointment or a client with just a change of the music, much less the environment. And again, the color of the walls, like there's some high end stuff that we're doing for our studio, but that I've noticed. I take a lot of my notes from outside of tattooing. um how my studio looks, the furniture, the colors that we use for the walls, like all that comes from not tattooing. This is like home design. This is industrial design. This is like just other business applications. And one of them is like, if you notice, a lot of businesses will have patented scents. So every time, and I don't know if this is a great example, but every Apple store you go to in the United States looks and smells the same. It's the Apple store. It always is. That's patented. Yeah, every time you go into one of those, it looks the same and it feels the same, and so it has that level of like recognition and comfort. When you go in, you kind of know exactly where you are, and I think our studios provide that same space. Your shop might smell like green soap. We've got some specific things that we do here that I believe in, like using lavender and plants and stuff to kind of bring some organics into the space. So like you walk in and even if it's somebody's first time here, like you can see their shoulders drop as soon as the door opens. Like
Hmm.
it feels nice. The walls are lightly colored. There's like artwork everywhere. It smells good. There's some plants going on. And it's just kind of like, okay, now we can get the process started. You don't come in like,
Yeah.
oh shit, can I be here? Are they going to be nice to me? Is he just gonna listen to anything that I say? All that's obviously not the case.
Huh. That's yeah, that's cool. I never think about crafting the experience quite uh, to that extreme, but I love that idea. Do you use actual plants, or do you use a lot of like oils and uh, whatever incense, things like that?
A mixture of the above. So I mean, we've
Hmm.
got plants throughout the studio, and then as far as like scent specific things go, I'm actually working with a local company here on curating our own like custom scent for our new studio,
Nice.
just to kind of get on that level of like high end feels kind of good. But then again, there's like some intentionality there. So right now we just use like kind of like some essential oils and some high end um, like
candle products and stuff to kind of keep that going, so that every time you walk in, it's just that familiar kind of
Yeah.
grounding experience for sure. And again, all of that goes into it. We provide like we've got a high end coffee machine, and we've got some like healthy snacks and some drinks and stuff that don't have corn syrup, like things to help your mind and your body and all the
Hmm.
things that go into the tattoo process.
Hmm.
But then by having that high end look, I think people, the clients that we have, immediately you're speaking a similar language where your guards down, you've got this nice presentation. That's what they're looking for, not only in you but in your work. And that's seen from top to bottom, front to back. As soon as they walk in, it's like, okay, this is where I want to be. This is the project that I'm looking for.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by that. What do you, from a scent standpoint specifically, like, have you done research and you're like, okay, what, I mean, obviously
For
it's
sure.
probably easy to see like what relaxes people, but it's like, well, how much like leather do we want? I mean, do we want it to smell more masculine, more feminine, more like, so how do you,
Exactly.
what do you,
Yeah, so I
yeah,
I don't exactly know to that extent, but the company that
okay.
I'm working with, they definitely do. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm kind of pitching to them like, what we're going for, what our clientele is like, what our day to day looks like, so
Mm,
we can kind of match something there. We've got some scents from them that we really like that are definitely kind of neutral, but on the like muskier, kind of like masculine, but all natural smell. But
mm,
I mean, 70% of my clients are female, so I want to cater to them also, make them feel comfortable. That's a big thing for me. And again, that's the difference between maybe tattoos historically versus now, is like making sure all clients, regardless of background or identifying markers, like making sure that they're comfortable and taken care of as well.
mhm.
For
But you
sure,
know,
that's
it's,
one thing that I'm pretty big on.
yeah, but you know what's cool about that is you really do get to kind of craft it. Seth Godin, the marketer, is his one of his big things when he's talking about like trying to find. He wrote Tribes and
Yeah,
Purple
yeah,
Cow
yeah.
and all that
Okay,
stuff.
yep.
But he was like, his statement is like, people like us do things like this. And so, and I understand it, you want to be as inclusive as possible, but it's so much fun to be like, well, who is naturally drawn to my work or to
Yep.
my studio? What is that avatar? Why do we relate so well to each other? And how do I craft something that's more appealing to that person? You know,
Yeah, yeah, for
not
sure.
to be not to exclude anyone else, but like you have to like I can't draw a picture if I don't have an idea of what I'm drawing the picture for, you know?
Exactly, and I think some of that comes with, again, like authenticity, and in the process of us as artists, creative thinkers is literally who runs and drives the world from an economic or an industrial standpoint. So you want to recognize who you're drawing in and maybe catering to them. If my clientele is a large proportion of women, then maybe I want to do things that are a little bit more kind of calming, or not red walls. Maybe we go
Mhm.
with like a more neutral tone or things like that. But also, a lot of what draws people to me, a lot of what draws people to you, is you and your work and what you like, to an extent.
Right.
So you also don't want to look too hard at like, okay, well, what would be cool? Because then you start to maybe lose yourself. And then we see that in tattooers. Like, we all go through a phase, probably in that 3 to 5 year mark, where you're like, man, his neotrad stuff looks cool, I want to do that. But that may not be you, and that may not be what your clientele came to you for in the first place.
Hmm.
Not that we're not all going to grow, and all of us, we all have our styles change all the time. But if you get to a point, probably in that 5 to 10 year, maybe 8 to 10 year mark, where you start to get back to yourself and what you want to do, and really honing that into what you notice people do and don't like. And then you'll probably notice that you're going up even further, because now you're staying true to yourself and what you can deliver on. Um, and
Yeah.
that's a conceptual conversation that can be applied to kind of anything.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
That comment about early stage kind of growth and being very malleable and gravitating towards something because you think it's cool at that point in time, and then
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
overextending yourself that way reminds me. We've got this new thing I haven't been talking about. I haven't pitched it at all yet, but it's called the Inside Fireside Tattoo Club. And as of now,
cool.
it's just a Discord server, but it's a group of us that meet and we draw together and we bounce ideas. We do monthly drawing challenges. I'm doing this thing where we're like, I'm doing AI prompts, and then I'm having them printed on cheap canvases, and I'm going to send them to the tattoo club to paint on top of and to
That's
collaborate.
awesome.
So
That's a
we'll do
great
these.
idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've got a few of them sitting around here, but doing these human AI kind of collaborations. But one idea that popped up the other day from one of the members, and she has been tattooing maybe for, I don't know, a few years, not real long, or early on, and she wants to start like a client role play night where we pretend, where she goes through and gets to practice uh her consultation process, how she interacts with people, how she finds who she works with, how she finds who to turn away, what kind of to look for, because that's one of those things early on when you really need to kind of, you need the income, you're constantly bending over backwards for and
Yep.
being taken advantage of, and you're constantly seeing something new that's awesome and you want to grab onto it. And just that idea that she threw out, I was like, oh yeah, that's such an important thing really for everyone. But you get to a point where you kind of have your consultation process down, and and you either gel or you don't with that client.
Yep.
But there's a certain point through your career where that is such a vital piece of the puzzle that there's no real great prep tool for it,
Yeah, exactly. That's,
other
a
than
lot of
just,
that is logging experience and then
mhm,
having good people around you.
yeah.
And I'm big on that. Part of my mission with this studio, it's on our website and everything, is, creativity and community is like the two big goals we're going for. So like, how do we create a space where both us and the clients and the artists that come or participate in shows or guest spot feel that level of creativity, but we have that community to share. Everyone is guards down. So bi-weekly, I host an art night. Once a year, we donate a couple days to a breast cancer organization that's nationally recognized at this point, and we just donate time to them to kind of give back to the community. Couple volunteer events. It's open all the time for people, and for the tattooers, like all the time, I'll sit down and I'll help them think through situations with clients. But on the business side, like talk numbers, get some ideas in their head, and see if they're ready to get off that booth rental or that percentage based income and onto that booth rental income, and
Hmm.
go over a business plan. And I do that stuff for free all the time, usually at the art night. So twice a month, I'm usually doing it, and a lot of people did that for me. I've always been around pretty good people that have given me at least some input when I needed it, and I think it helped me fast track my career a little bit. Not necessarily in skill, because again, you just have to log hours, but in how I presented myself, or the studios that I've worked at, or the people that I've worked with.
Hmm.
I started pretty fast, pretty quick, for better or for worse, and then just kind of caught up to it.
Hmm.
I think is kind of where I'm at now.
That's an advantage, a huge advantage that I had as well, and probably it's easy to overlook whenever you were around people who made you comfortable, who you saw interact well with, who were articulate and well spoken and engaging, or however they dealt with their clients, and it made it
Yep.
easier for you to deal with your clients. And my early experience was at a street shop, and I didn't learn a lot there, but my early experience at Underground Art, where I started tattooing with David Evans, who was my co-host on this show for the first 100 episodes or so.
Yep.
David is the most, if you ever watched any of those episodes, he's the most outgoing, personable. He goes out of his way to make everyone comfortable. And I think that I am still to this day like a secondhand version of David Evans in my
Yeah.
consultation process, because I just gravitated to the way that he engaged people.
Yep.
He's a big guy with piercings everywhere and long hair and covered in tattoos, but
For
he
sure.
made wearing Testament t-shirts, all
Yeah.
chains.
Yeah.
But he was so engaging and so like accommodating and kind, and it was such a like it was striking to me when I first started working with him.
Yeah.
And I just completely adopted it. And so whenever like people like SJ, who I was talking about earlier, who wants to do the role play nights for consultations, she's at a shop where that's just not that doesn't exist. And so you're kind of
Yeah.
like, just imagine. I can remember working with people over the years where like they would come out to do the consultation, and then the person's like, yeah, I kind of want to just do this like yin yang, but I want to do it here. And the tattooer's like, yeah, you can't really do that.
Yeah, right. And then
That's
again,
it.
the peers might not have good feedback either. Some of them might say, "Do it and grab your money," or
Yeah, right.
tell her to fuck off. And
Yeah.
I don't think any three of those scenarios are good. It's like, what about if we did this? You sit down,
Yeah.
you're personal with them, and you can take that conversation where you want it to go
Mhm.
if you know how to navigate it.
Right.
And again, I was lucky enough to start off in a pretty high end environment. I got in with some good people pretty early on, made some good friends and connections. Spent a lot of time oil painting, all these little processes that led up to, I think, what's got me here now, and I'm super fortunate for that. And I'm a big believer in like giving back. Like tattooing has given me so much. So anytime we have these art nights where 30 artists, tattooers or otherwise, show up and they ask for help, or they've got questions, or they like my oil painting and they want me to give them a crash course or something, like I'm open. Like that's what people did for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do it for them, and I think we should do that for each other. You mentioned something earlier about you mentioned something specific earlier about someone or the idea of tattooing being closed off at times, and I've never agreed with that or appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we're not saving the world. You know, we're tattooing flowers, so let's help each other get good and hopefully impact other people, because tattooing is really powerful. And then so is our artwork beyond that. So again, this vessel that I'm working on is kind of the collaboration of those with that in mind, of like that, you know, that strategic curation of like what the goal is.
Right. I believe that ship has sailed with the mindset, the closed off kind of pirate mentality. Obviously, there's still a lot of pirate mentality in tattooing, but the closed off stuff I think is long gone. And something that I was thinking about when I was getting when I've been reading this feedback on AI being the end of tattooing, and people are so anti-AI. I think back to when we started. We're 10 years old about right now, Fireside, and in the first videos that we put out were just kind of shop talk kind of videos, and they were fine and no one cared. And then I did a couple of videos, one in particular where I did 3 ways to build up line weight. It was an afterthought of a video. It wasn't well filmed. There wasn't much to it. It was 8 minutes long, and it went, we were getting 800 views. That got 25,000 views. And instantly I got all this feedback from legit tattooers telling me to get off the internet, to kill myself, for real, to kill myself, like the meanest, most hateful stuff ever. And the idea was that this was a zero-sum game. Like, if you help make these other tattooers better, then that's less tattoos for me to do. Right? Like, because there are only this many clients. And of course, fast forward, and what's happened, we've like 10x the number of tattoo clients or more. You know, everyone has gotten better. And that was the most ridiculous mindset ever. And I knew it was ridiculous at the time, but I didn't know how to get the point across. I knew that the information age was well on its way, and it was working for every other industry. So I thought, why not ours?
Exactly.
But I kind of had that same feeling with the way that technology is going now, and the prompts and the AI. And not to bring it all back to that, I don't necessarily want to go back into that subject, but the shift in mindset, it's like, it's not zero sum. If you can adopt a mindset that says, like, if I have a client and I send you a client, it doesn't mean that I lost a client, right? There's not one client, and it's either or, you know?
10 years after that video, you know, we're all doing good. I think we're all doing better. The caliber of work that's online all the time, or at the shows, or in the art shows, is insane. Everyone is so cool. I know people that are 2-3 years in, and they are crushing it. And that's from that shared information. That's from a video about line weight. And, you know, are you taking clients? Obviously that wasn't the case. Are you helping somebody that tattoos out of their house who doesn't want to go the apprenticeship route? I mean, possibly, but those people are going to do it anyway. So why not help them get better, although that's not the goal, and then cause less clients to get more bad shit, you know? Like, let's spread it around evenly so the whole thing can come up, you know?
Right. We've taken, you know, back then especially, we talked about kitchen magicians or scratchers or whatever. It's
of course.
The thing that we neglect to think about a lot is, like, nobody wants to suck. No one wants to be a shitty tattooer. No one wants to tattoo in their bathroom. That was their option, and they're grabbing whatever information they can. And if one of us or all of us aren't in there leading them, because one of them might be the next Jeff Gogwe. I had this conversation with Jeff Gogwe.
Exactly.
That's how he started.
Exactly.
So it's like, and I mean, you have to, if you don't give information, if you don't share information to people who are eager and willing and they want to get better, it's not that they're trying to do $10 tattoos out of their bathroom. Nobody wants that.
Yep. You know? They're working with what they got.
Yeah. And so whenever we did that line weight video, I remember even some people in my own shop saying, like, that they didn't like the idea of putting that video out. And I didn't do it to be controversial. It really was one of the early kind of how-to videos out there.
Yep.
But the way that I was thinking about it was, so people want to know how to pull better lines, or how to get bolder lines, or thinner lines, or crisper lines, or taper lines. But I know that the real question is, why do you want a line there? And do you even need a line there? Should that be a bold line, or should it be a soft line? But if I can't at least address their question, then I don't have the right to, I haven't earned their attention enough to like offer advice on why you don't actually need a line in that area. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So if you can't earn their attention, then then you can't teach them anything. You know, you have to at least like dangle the carrot and solve some little problem. Like, okay, you're struggling with your line. You don't know how fast to run your machine. I'll help you with that. But let me ask you
Exactly.
a question. Why do you
Yep.
need that to be there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think again, just like helping each other either through your platform, maintaining the integrity of what a good tattoo convention looks like,
Hmm.
putting in the work for your clients from an artistic process perspective, and having your own integrity to give your clients what they're asking and put the work in. And even if you're using AI, pull that line drawing, study that reference, do your job well to the best of your ability at the time. All of this goes into the same thing of like just 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 maintaining that growth pattern, that trajectory, so that you and hopefully everyone around you can get better. I always think that like I never want to be the tallest person in the room or
Yeah.
or the best person in the room, because like it could be lonely at the top. I don't know what analogy you want to use, but like if somehow statistically you could say where I was right now, I was the best, like then where do I go?
Hmm.
I want to be around artists that are better than me, or people that are more business savvy, or have a better work ethic, or a healthier work life balance, or whatever it is, so I can strive towards these things and keep this oscillating plate of life like in balance.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I think that's well said. Yeah. Well, so tell everyone, and I'll make sure this episode comes out in whatever time frame you want it to come out before the show. But when is the actual uh, Pixel show?
Yeah, so it'll be at my studio, which is Aura 4 Tattoo Gallery. April 15th will be our show. That's when the new studio will be presented to everybody as well. Like I said, somewhere around 120-ish artists from Austin, Texas, and around the country. We've got some of our tattoo friends from you to Arizona up to Long Island that all submit for it. So all different styles, all different people. A lot of the guys that we all love on Instagram will be in there. So it's
Nice.
open to the public. We've got a lot of big like local public sponsors that help us out with the show. So we give out a lot of free stuff, and there'll be some merch and stuff there to help us keep these shows going. And then, of course, the paintings for people that'll be online as well in the virtual gallery. So if you can't make it to the show, I always launch that usually the day of, before the show is open, so everyone can see it and maybe buy something before it's all gone in person.
Hmm.
So you can definitely check it out there, and I'll make sure you have the links for that to put up. But it's pretty cool. It's definitely worth a check out. Even just hit the online link and scroll through for 30 seconds. It's a cool presentation.
Thanks again to James. Thanks again to you for watching this episode. I wanted to invite you to head over to firesidetattoo.com and check out, if you go to the education tab, you can find a little page on our Inside Fireside Tattoo Club. We're starting to promote this thing a little bit more. I've kind of kept it tucked away for a little while we figured out what it actually was. But now that it's growing and we have a good little community going, and we're all learning from each other and drawing together and doing critiques and doing client role play nights and all kinds of different stuff, I'm ready to kind of grow it a little bit. So it's super cool if you want to spend some time kind of hanging out, drawing with me and my friends a couple of nights a week, then I suggest that you head over there, Inside Fireside Tattoo Club, and check it out. You can do it just for a month, or you can do a whole year, whatever you like. If you have any questions about it, you can email us, info@firesidetattoo.com, or just click on the little chat bot at the bottom of our website, firesidetattoo.com. Also, while you're there, sign up for our Tattoo Tuesday tips. I think that's what it's called, Tattoo Tuesday tips. Anyways, every Tuesday you'll get some type of a little nugget of information that is useful for tattooers and apprentices. That's it. Make sure, if you're in the Austin area, to check out James's show at Aura Gallery, the Pixel Show. All of the information on that will be in the show notes below. And if you can't make it there in person, make sure to jump online and check it out virtually. Thank you guys, as always, for supporting the Fireside Tattoo Network. We'll see you next time.